Oh, what's this little guy? Whoa. Alright, so obviously this didn't happen in real life, but in my brain, all I can think about is more lightning videos. So that's what we're going to do. So I found this tutorial made by DanRoot, where he shows us how to make this lightning strike, which, however hard to admit, is ever so slightly better than mine. No, not that one. What I'm talking about is my last two videos with randomly generated lightning. And what I want to do is take those concepts and mix them with DanRoot's art style and see if we can make a randomly generated lightning bolt that looks close to as good as DanRoot's. So, here we go. Alright, so I got this broken down into 3 parts. Step 1, I'm going to just create the arc points. Essentially the points at which the lightning bolt changes direction. Step 2, I want to connect those in the order that they were dropped. And step 3, I want to turn those lines into something that actually looks like lightning. So, step 1. Alrighty, I'm starting off here with a basically blank page. I have a tiled background that is just gray. I'm going to go ahead and lock this. And then I have just a sprite right here, which is my arc point. And that's just to show where the lightning arcs are going to be. My goal for this stage is to create clusters of the arc points in a random yet downward trending pattern. And my goal for that will be to use essentially a cage. So each time I spawn one of my arc points, I want the next spawn to be within this cage. So we're going to have 40 pixels as our height, 100 pixels as our width. This is not to size, so don't go measuring it. And that means once I spawn this one here, my next one can spawn anywhere within the confines of this randomly. So it can go upwards, but more than likely it will go downwards, and it should have an even chance to go either left or right. And then once I spawn that one, this whole grid will move, and we'll do it again until we get all the way down to the bottom of our page here. So, hopping into the code. So I ended up doing this in 2 parts. My first one is on the spacebar being pressed, and this is just going to create my first arc point, and we want that to be definitely near the top of our layout here and somewhere in the middle. That way we don't start on the side and have the lightning bolt jump off the page. So I designed it to ignore the first 510 pixels and the last 510 pixels, which gives me a 900 area in which they can summon. And I can mash spacebar over and over again, and it'll continue summoning new ones, so we can see the zone in which they can spawn here. And as we can see, we have this blank area in the beginning and at the end here, and they can spawn anywhere in the middle, and then they're just sitting at this fixed 50 pixel range. I can move that up higher if I want to, but I just wanted to be able to see entirely where my first one spawned. And we do that all right here. Our page width is 1920 pixels, so by skipping the first 510 automatically, and then skipping an additional 0 to 900, that means they can spawn between 510 and 1410. And 1410 leaves the last 510 untouchable. So you can't touch the first 510, can't touch the last. And then here's where I set that 50 for the y-axis. So nothing special there. And then I call a function. And let's toggle this back on. And this function gives the arc point position. So it gives an x and a y coordinate into this function, and that just allows me to remember where my last arc point was spawned. And then as long as my last arc point wasn't spawned with a y-axis of greater than 1080, which would be below my page now, it'll spawn another one by recalling the same function with the same x and y points from this new arc point that we spawned. And we can see how that looks. And we're definitely on the right track here. So next we get to connect our dots. Alright, for my first idea on connecting the lines, we did create a line here. Zoom in doesn't really help. I'm going to pull it up in the image editor, and it's just a 1 pixel by 1 pixel black dot, and the origin point is set all the way to the left, and this allows me to set the width, and then instead of going off in both directions from the origin, it can only move to the right. Now this will allow me to stretch it and get this line, and then I can set the angle from there to point to where I need to go. For temp 1, I did a few things. I first destroy the line and arc point that I start with, which are above the map. This way, when I do a for each, I ignore them. And then after running all of my arc points until I'm below 1080, I try to push this code, which is done by simply doing an else, where I create a line object and then try to stretch to the nearest arc point. Additionally, I also threw a small wait time in between each of these, and that way we can see it all happening in slow motion essentially. So each one goes down, and then the lines are created, but they don't stretch anywhere. And if we run this, we can see the arcs go up, and then the line count goes up as well. And I have all the lines I need, and we can see each line is on each dot correctly. It just does not stretch to the next dot. And that is because for each arc point, I'm also looking for an arc point, and the closest arc point is going to be itself. So I need a way to push my second arc point from remembering where the first arc point was. So for that, we will use an instance variable, and I just want a boolean, and I'm going to mark it as used. So essentially, each time I connect to a different arc point, we're going to mark it as used, and we won't connect to it again. So we'll see if that helps us out. And it totally does not. After a few small edits to the code, I ended up with a function here, which I call and send in the UID of the line. That way I can directly call which line I want, as well as the next arc point. And this works to the extent that I do get my lines now, but they don't necessarily go in. Ooh, they do go in order. Alrighty, small miracles. Looks like this worked better than I thought it would. So, moving on to making it look like a lightning bolt instead of just zigzags. Alright, not to brag, but I hate it. Side note, I don't know what bragging is. But I made the lightning bolt happen instantly, and then I hide the arc points, and then I thicken some of the widths here on the lightning bolt. And then I tried to give it a coursing electrical feel, if you will. Kind of make it seem more alive, and looks more like liquids going through veins than a lightning bolt. I then thought maybe the flashing effects would help, having it come and leave very quickly. And then last I added the blinking white and black contrast, and yeah, just not a fan. So back to the drawing board. We're going to see if we can figure out a different way to go about this. Did a bit of research and found some old forum posts on lightning strikes. Not secure. Dead link. Not found. Not found. And even the one from 5 years ago. Same issues. Not found. Not found. It is. Oh, so I do have one project I can go off of. So I'll take a look at that, see if I can figure out anything. And then Google was not too helpful. Here's where I found the construct forums. And then essentially after those three, it goes into lighting effects instead of lightning effects. And oh look, my video on lighting. So that's helpful. But yeah, we'll see what I can figure out from this project, and we'll go from there.
One eternity later.
And we are finally somewhere I am proud to B. I made lightning. The project file was helpful. Not in the way that I thought it'd be, but it did show me that lightning at that quality can still look good as long as it's moving quickly, which mine has all been standstill. Additionally, it showed me a problem that I didn't know I had yet, and that was how to pick a starting and an ending point. So with the help of that project, I was able to recreate what I already had, but with the addition of a targeting system. From there, I just kept tinkering with my weird looking lightning bolt problems. The gaps between different segments was fixable by having closer to even size strikes. So my bolts originally were random between 3 to 8 pixels, and my new ones, the most they separate by is 1 at a time, and they start out thicker near the top and they get thinner near the bottom. Then from there I worked in the white flash followed by the black flash, and then after the 2 flashes having that super thin strike which then fades away, and then throwing a second strike on top of it. In the video they essentially just inverted the arc directions. Ours keeps it completely random for both, but it does give it that extra pizzazz, making it too much for your eyes to keep track of. And I guess the less you see, the better it looks. Starting to look good now with multiple strikes. Then if we want to go crazy, we can even set it to strike multiple things at once with multiple strikes. And in the end, I also added something that my friend was bugging me about. So this is the final product. And as always, there'll be a link in the description taking you to the code. You can play with it, change it, use it for your own. And let me know if you have any questions or requests down in the comments below. Any likes and subscribes are always appreciated. And until next time, peace.